Welcome back. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a simple penny, and discovering it could be worth far more than 1 cent. Not because it's made of gold, not because it looks special at first glance, but because of a tiny detail stamped onto its surface that most people overlook every single day. Today, we're uncovering the story behind the 1960 mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that quietly holds history, mystery, and in some cases, surprising value. The 1960 Lincoln penny is part of one of the most familiar coins in American history. First look, it seems completely ordinary. It carries the image of Abraham Lincoln on the front and wheat ears, or the Lincoln Memorial on the back, depending on the year. By 1960, the design featured the Lincoln Memorial, a change that had been introduced just the year before in 1959 to celebrate Lincoln's 150th birthday. This alone makes the 1960 penny part of a newer era in penny design, marking a transition from the classic wheat reverse to a more modern look. The D mint mark on the coin stands for Denver, meaning it was produced at the Denver Mint. In 1960, millions of pennies were struck there, and at the time, no one imagined that some of them would later become collector favorites. Back then, these coins were simply part of everyday life. People used them for small purchases, dropped them into jars, or ignored them entirely. But hidden within that massive production were subtle variations that would later capture the attention of collectors. To understand why this coin matters, you have to look at its historical context. The early 1960s were a time of change in the United States. The country was moving into a new decade filled with technological advancements, cultural shifts, and economic growth. Coin production was high because the demand for currency was increasing. The U.S. Mint was working quickly to keep up, and sometimes, when production moves fast, small differences and errors can slip through. Those small differences are exactly what makes certain coins stand out today. The 1960 penny is made primarily of copper, with a composition of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. This gives it that classic reddish-brown color when new, which often fades into darker tones over time. If you hold one in your hand, you might notice its weight feels slightly heavier compared to modern pennies, which use different materials. This older copper composition is one of the reasons collectors enjoy coins from this era. They feel more substantial, more connected to history. Now, here's where things get interesting. Not all 1960 pennies are the same. One of the most talked about features of pennies from 1960 is the difference between what collectors call small date and large date varieties. These differences are subtle, but once you see them, you can't unsee them. The size and shape of the numbers in the year can vary, and these variations happen because of changes in the dies used to strike the coins. For collectors, finding a small date version, especially in better condition, can be exciting. While the large date version is more common, the small date tends to draw more attention. Even though both were produced in large numbers, condition and clarity of the design play a huge role in determining value. A coin that looks almost untouched, with sharp details and minimal wear, can be worth significantly more than one that has been heavily circulated. Another detail that adds to the intrigue is the possibility of minting errors. While the 1960 penny is not the most famous error coin in U.S. history, there are still examples of off-center strikes, double dies, and other small imperfections that can increase value. These errors occur when something goes slightly wrong during the minting process, creating a coin that is unique compared to the standard version. For collectors, these mistakes are not flaws. They are treasures. So why is this penny valuable? The truth is, most 1960 pennies are still worth only a few cents, especially if they are worn. But certain factors can dramatically increase their value. Condition is one of the biggest. Coins that are graded as uncirculated, meaning they show little to no signs of use, can sell for much higher prices. Color also matters. Collectors often prefer coins with a bright red appearance, which indicates they have been well preserved. Then there are the rarer varieties and errors. A well-preserved small date coin or one with a noticeable minting error can attract serious attention from collectors. In some cases, these coins have sold for tens or even hundreds of dollars, depending on their quality and uniqueness. While that might not sound like life-changing money, it's still an incredible return for something that started as a 1-cent coin. There have been auction examples where high-grade 1960 pennies reached impressive prices. Coins that have been professionally graded and certified tend to perform better in the market because buyers trust their authenticity and condition. A pristine example with strong color and sharp details can stand out in auctions, especially when collectors are competing to add it to their collections. If you're wondering whether you might have one of these coins, the good news is that they're not impossible to find. Many people still have jars of old coins at home, and the 1960D penny is not extremely rare in general circulation. However, finding one in excellent condition or with a unique feature is where the challenge lies. To identify a real 1960D penny, start by looking at the date and the mint mark. The D should appear just below the date on the front of the coin. Check the numbers carefully to see whether they match the small date or large date style. Pay attention to the overall appearance of the coin. Authentic coins will have consistent details, while fake or altered coins might show signs of tampering, unusual textures, or incorrect proportions. Weight can also help. A genuine 1960 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If it feels significantly lighter or heavier, that could be a red flag. Another important tip is to avoid cleaning the coin. It might be tempting to make it look shiny, but cleaning can actually reduce its value by damaging the surface point. One of the most surprising facts about coins like the 1960D penny is how easily they can go unnoticed. People often focus on older coins from the 1800s or rare silver pieces, but sometimes valuable coins are hiding in plain sight. A simple penny from the 1960s might not seem special, but under the right conditions, it can become a collector's item. Collectors love this coin not because it is the rarest, but because it represents a moment in time. It's a piece of everyday history that millions of people once used without a second thought. Holding one today is like holding a small fragment of the past, a reminder of how something so common can later become meaningful. There's also a sense of discovery that comes with coins like this. You don't need to be a professional collector to start searching. Anyone can check their spare change, look through old jars, or explore inherited collections. The excitement comes from the possibility that you might find something unexpected. Another interesting detail is how the design itself connects to American history. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse side symbolizes unity and remembrance, while Lincoln's portrait represents leadership and resilience. These elements give the coin a deeper significance beyond its monetary value. Over time, the way people view coins has changed. What was once just currency is now seen as a collectible, an investment, or even a piece of art. The 1960D penny sits right at that intersection. It's not just about how much it's worth, but about the story it tells and the curiosity it sparks. And that curiosity is what keeps collectors searching. Every coin has a story, and sometimes the smallest details make the biggest difference. A slight variation in the date, a tiny mint mark, or an unexpected error can turn an ordinary coin into something worth talking about. So the next time you come across a penny, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. Check the date, examine the details, and consider the journey that coin has taken over the decades. Because hidden among billions of coins, there are always a few that stand out, waiting to be discovered. And who knows? That quiet little 1960D penny sitting in a drawer or tucked away in a jar might just have more to say than you ever imagined. Welcome back. Imagine holding a simple penny in your hand, one that looks like any other coin in your pocket, yet it quietly carries a story from one of the most important years in modern American history. What if that small copper coin could be worth far more than 1 cent, and most people never even notice it? Today, we're talking about the 1964 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that may seem ordinary at first glance, but has layers of history, subtle details, and hidden value that collectors continue to chase even decades later. The 1964 D Lincoln penny is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series, first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. By 1964, this design had already been in circulation for over half a century, becoming one of the most recognizable coins in American history. The D Mint mark on the coin tells us it was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the key facilities responsible for supplying coins across the United States. Now, 1964 was not just another ordinary year for coin production. The early 1960s saw a growing coin shortage across the country. People were hoarding coins, especially silver coins, because the metal value was rising. As a result, The US Mint had to dramatically increase production to keep enough coins in circulation. Billions of pennies were struck that year, including a massive number at the Denver Mint. So at first, you might think, if so many were made, how could any of them be valuable? That's where things get interesting. The 1964 D penny is made primarily of copper, about 95% copper with a small amount of tin and zinc. This gives it that classic reddish-brown appearance that older pennies are known for. On the front, you'll see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, facing to the right, with the words "In God We Trust" above his head, "Liberty" to the left, and the date 1964 along with the small D mint mark just below it. On the back, the coin features the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959 to replace the earlier wheat ears. If you look closely at the reverse, you can actually see a tiny depiction of the Lincoln statue inside the memorial, which is a remarkable detail for such a small coin. Even though billions of these coins were produced, not all 1964 D pennies are equal. Condition plays a huge role. Coins that have been heavily circulated, scratched, or worn down are usually only worth a few cents more than face value. But coins that have been preserved in near-perfect condition, especially those with a bright red luster, can be worth significantly more. Collectors use specific terms like red, red-brown, and brown to describe the color of copper coins. A fully red 1964 D penny, meaning it still retains most of its original mint shine, is far more desirable than one that has darkened over time. These red coins are much harder to find because copper naturally reacts with the environment and changes color. Now let's talk about something that really excites collectors: errors and varieties. During high-speed production in 1964, mistakes did happen. Some 1964 D pennies show doubling in the lettering or numbers, known as double die errors. This means that during the minting process, the design was accidentally stamped more than once in slightly different positions, creating a noticeable doubling effect. Other coins may have off-center strikes, where the design is not perfectly aligned on the coin, or die cracks, where small lines appear due to wear in the minting equipment. These kinds of errors can turn a common penny into a highly collectible piece point. One of the most talked about possibilities is the existence of unusual planchets or transitional errors, although these are extremely rare and often debated among experts. In general, if a 1964 D penny looks unusual in weight, color, or strike, it could be worth taking a closer look. So how much are these coins actually worth? In average circulated condition, a 1964 D penny might only be worth a few cents to maybe $1 at most. But in uncirculated condition, especially with strong eye appeal and a bright red finish, values can jump to $10, $20, or even higher depending on grading. For top-quality examples graded by professional services, prices can climb much higher. Some pristine specimens have sold for over $100, especially those graded at the highest levels with exceptional color and detail. And if you add a rare error into the mix, the value can increase dramatically, sometimes reaching several $100s or more. It's important to understand that not every 1964 D penny is a hidden treasure, but the right combination of condition, color, and rarity can make a big difference. Now you might be wondering, how can you tell if your 1964 D penny is real or valuable? First, check the mint mark. It should be a small D located just below the date. Look closely at the details of the coin. Genuine coins will have sharp, consistent features, especially around Lincoln's face and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Next, pay attention to the weight. A standard 1964 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If it's significantly lighter or heavier, it could be altered or counterfeit. Using a simple digital scale can help you verify this. Also, examine the surface. Real coins will show natural wear patterns, while fake or altered coins might have unusual textures, tool marks, or inconsistent coloring. If you believe you have a high-quality or unusual example, it's always a good idea to have it evaluated by a professional coin grading service. They can authenticate the coin, assign it a grade, and give you a better idea of its true market value. Here's something surprising. Even though the 1964 D penny is not considered rare in terms of mintage, it represents the end of an era in US coinage. Just 1 year later, in 1965, the composition of many coins began to change, especially with the removal of silver from dimes and quarters. While pennies remained copper for a while longer, 1964 still stands as a key year in the broader story of American coins. Another fun detail is that many people still have 1964 pennies sitting in jars, drawers, or old collections without realizing their potential value. Because they were so widely circulated, these coins are often overlooked, making it even more exciting when someone discovers a high-grade or error coin hiding in plain sight. Collectors love the 1964 D Lincoln penny not because it's the rarest coin, but because it represents accessibility and possibility. It's a coin that anyone could find, yet it still offers the thrill of discovery. It connects everyday people to history, to craftsmanship, and to the idea that something small and simple can hold real value. For beginners, it's also a great entry point into coin collecting. You don't need a huge budget or rare connections to start. You just need curiosity, patience, and a willingness to look closely at the coins you already have. And that's really the magic of coins like the 1964 D penny. They remind us that history isn't always locked away in museums or behind glass. Sometimes, it's right there in your pocket, waiting to be noticed. So the next time you come across an old penny, take a second look. Check the date, look for that small D, and examine the details. You might just be holding a small piece of history that has more to it than meets the eye. Because in the world of coin collecting, even the most ordinary coin can have an extraordinary story. Welcome back. Imagine holding a simple penny in your hand and realizing it might be worth far more than just 1 cent. What if a small detail, barely visible to the naked eye, could turn an ordinary coin into something collectors chase for years? Today, we're talking about the 1968 Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that quietly marked a turning point in American coin history. At first glance, it looks like any other penny, copper-colored, worn by time, maybe even sitting unnoticed in a jar somewhere. But behind this coin is a story of change, controversy, and hidden value that most people never realize. The 1968 Lincoln penny was produced in San Francisco, one of the most important mints in the United States. The S mint mark, located just below the date on the front of the coin, tells us exactly where it was made. This small letter is the key detail that separates it from millions of other pennies. To understand why this coin matters, we need to go back a few years. In the mid-1960s, the United States faced a serious coin shortage. People were hoarding coins, especially silver ones, because their metal value was rising. To fix this, the government made a major decision. From 1965 to 1967, mint marks were removed entirely from coins to discourage collecting and hoarding. But in 1968, mint marks returned. This was a big moment. The San Francisco Mint began producing pennies again, and the 1968 Lincoln penny became one of the first coins to reintroduce that identifying mark. It may seem like a small detail, but for collectors, it signaled a new chapter. The design of the coin remained classic and familiar. On the front, you see the profile of Abraham Lincoln, first introduced in 1909 to honor his 100th birthday. This design was created by Victor David Brenner and has become one of the most recognizable images in American history. On the back, the coin still featured the wheat ears design until 1958, but by 1968, it displayed the Lincoln Memorial, showing the iconic building in Washington, D.C. The coin itself is made mostly of copper, about 95%, with a small amount of zinc. It has a warm reddish-brown color when new, but over time, it can turn darker or even develop a deep chocolate tone. Collectors often describe these coins as red, red-brown, or brown depending on their condition. Now here's where things get interesting. Not all 1968 pennies are the same. In fact, some versions of this coin are far more valuable than others. The biggest factor is condition. Coins that were never circulated, meaning they were never used in everyday transactions, can be worth significantly more. These are known as mint state coins. But there's another factor that can make this penny truly special. Errors. One of the most talked about errors for the 1968 Lincoln penny is the double die variety. This happens when the coin is struck with a misaligned die, causing certain parts of the design to appear doubled. On some rare examples, you might see doubling in the lettering or the date. These errors are not easy to spot, but when they are confirmed, they can dramatically increase the coin's value. Another detail collectors look for is the clarity of the S mint mark itself. During this time, mint marks were still being punched into the die by hand, which means their position and shape can vary slightly. Some may appear tilted, faint, or even slightly off-center. While most of these variations are minor, certain unusual placements can catch a collector's attention. So why is this penny valuable? It comes down to a mix of history, condition, and rarity. While millions of 1968's pennies were made, very few have survived in perfect condition. Even fewer have notable errors or exceptional features. And as time goes on, finding high-quality examples becomes harder. In the world of coin collecting, scarcity drives value. A worn 1968's penny might only be worth a few cents, but a high-grade, uncirculated example with a bright red color can sell for hundreds of dollars. And if you add a rare error into the mix, the price can climb even higher. There have been auctions where top-condition 1968's pennies sold for impressive amounts. Coins graded at the highest levels, with flawless surfaces and sharp details, have reached prices that surprise many people. It's a reminder that even modern coins can hold serious value under the right conditions. Of course, with valuable coins comes the risk of fakes. If you think you found a 1968's Lincoln penny that might be special, there are a few things to check. First, look closely at the mint mark. It should be clear, properly shaped, and not appear glued or altered. Some counterfeit coins are made by adding an S to a regular penny, so any sign of tampering is a red flag. Second, examine the overall quality of the coin. Real coins have consistent detail and natural wear patterns. If something looks off, like uneven surfaces or strange textures, it could be a fake. Third, consider getting the coin professionally graded. Trusted grading services can confirm authenticity and assign a condition grade, which is essential for determining value. While this may cost a small fee, it can provide peace of mind and potentially increase the coin's market appeal. Now let's talk about some fun and surprising details. Did you know that in 1968, the San Francisco Mint was primarily producing proof coins for collectors? Proof coins are specially made with polished dies and planchets, giving them a mirror-like finish. However, the 1968's Lincoln penny also exists in regular circulation form, making it a unique crossover between collector-focused production and everyday use. Another interesting fact is that many people overlook this coin entirely. Because it's relatively modern compared to older rare coins, it doesn't always get the attention it deserves. But that's exactly what makes it exciting. Hidden treasures often sit in plain sight. Collectors today love the 1968's Lincoln penny for several reasons. It represents a return to tradition with the reintroduction of mint marks. It offers a chance to find valuable variations without needing to spend thousands of dollars up front. And it connects modern collectors to a specific moment in American history. There's also something deeply satisfying about searching for these coins. Whether you're going through old rolls, checking pocket change, or exploring inherited collections, the possibility of finding a rare piece keeps the excitement alive. In a world where digital transactions are becoming more common, physical coins like this carry a sense of history you can actually hold. Every scratch, every detail, every tiny letter tells a story, so the next time you come across a penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Check the date. Look for that small S mint mark, because you never know. That simple coin might be more than just spare change. And that's what makes the 1968's Lincoln penny so fascinating. It's not just about money. It's about discovery, history, and the thrill of finding something valuable where you least expect it. Keep your eyes open, because the next coin you pick up might just change the way you see every penny forever. Welcome back. Imagine pulling a simple penny from your pocket, barely giving it a second glance, and then discovering it could be worth far more than 1 cent. What if that ordinary-looking coin was quietly hiding a story of history, rare variations, and surprising value? Today, we're uncovering the truth behind the 1970 Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that has captured the attention of collectors across the country. At first glance, the 1970 Lincoln penny looks like any other coin you might find in loose change. It features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. The small D mint mark under the date tells us it was struck at the Denver Mint. Millions of these coins were produced, which might make you think they're all common and not worth much. But as with many coins, the real story lies in the details. To understand why this coin matters, we need to step back into the year 1970. The United States was going through a period of economic change. and coins were being produced in large numbers to keep up with demand. The Lincoln penny, first introduced in 1909, had already become one of the most recognizable coins in American history. By 1970, the design had remained largely unchanged for decades, making it a familiar part of everyday life. The Denver Mint, one of the primary facilities producing coins at the time, struck hundreds of millions of pennies that year. These coins were made from a composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc, giving them that classic reddish-brown color. This was before the composition changed in 1982, which makes all pre-1982 pennies, including the 1970D, particularly interesting to collectors who value copper coins. Now, here's where things get more intriguing. While most 1970D pennies are common, certain variations and errors make some of them highly collectible. One of the most talked about features is the small date versus large date variety. Although this is more famously associated with the 1970s pennies, collectors still carefully examine 1970D coins for subtle differences in the shape of the numbers in the date. Another important detail is the condition of the coin. A heavily worn 1970D penny might only be worth its face value, but a coin in mint state condition, meaning it has never been circulated and still retains its original shine, can be worth significantly more. Collectors look for sharp details in Lincoln's hair, clear lettering, and a strong, clean strike. But the real excitement comes from error coins. During the minting process, mistakes sometimes happen, and these errors can turn an ordinary penny into a valuable collectible. For the 1970D penny, collectors have reported double dies, where parts of the design appear slightly duplicated, and off-center strikes. Where the coin design is not properly aligned. One of the most fascinating errors is the double die obverse. This occurs when the die used to strike the coin has a slight misalignment, causing the design to appear doubled, especially in the lettering or the date. These coins are rare and can attract serious attention from collectors. So, how valuable can a 1970D Lincoln penny really be? For a standard circulated coin, the value is usually just a few cents. However, if you find one in excellent condition, the value can rise to a few dollars or more. Mint state examples, especially those graded by professional services, can sell for anywhere between $10 and $50, depending on their quality. Now, if you're lucky enough to find a rare error coin, the value can increase dramatically. Some high-grade error coins have sold for hundreds of dollars at auction. In rare cases, exceptional examples with strong doubling or unique minting errors have reached even higher prices, especially when multiple collectors compete to own them. There have been instances where collectors discovered a seemingly ordinary 1970D penny in an old jar or coin roll, only to realize it had a valuable error. These stories continue to fuel the excitement around coin collecting, reminding people that hidden treasures can still be found in everyday places. If you're wondering how to tell if your 1970D penny is real or valuable, there are a few simple things to look for. First, check the date and mint mark carefully. The D should be clearly visible under the date. Next, examine the coin under good lighting or with a magnifying glass. Look for sharp details and any unusual features, such as doubling in the letters or numbers. Weight is another important factor. A genuine 1970D penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If it feels too light or too heavy, it could be altered or counterfeit. Also, pay attention to the color. Original copper pennies develop a natural tone over time, ranging from bright red to deep brown. For those who want to be absolutely certain, professional coin grading services can authenticate and grade the coin. This not only confirms its authenticity, but can also increase its value if it receives a high grade. Now let's talk about some fun and surprising details. Did you know that billions of pennies are still sitting in jars, drawers, and piggy banks across the United States? Among them could be rare variations just waiting to be discovered. The 1970D penny is a perfect example of how even modern coins can hold hidden value. Another interesting fact is that copper pennies like the 1970D have intrinsic metal value. While it's illegal to melt down US coins for profit, the copper content itself has often been worth more than 1 cent, adding another layer of interest for collectors. Collectors also love the 1970D penny because it represents a transitional era in American coinage. It's part of the last generation of high copper pennies before the composition changed, making it a nostalgic piece of history for many people. There's also something deeply satisfying about searching for these coins. Unlike rare gold or silver coins that require large investments, the 1970 penny can still be found in circulation or old collections. This makes it accessible to beginners while still offering excitement for experienced collectors. Over the years, the popularity of coin collecting has grown, and coins like the 1970 penny have become part of that journey. They remind us that value isn't always obvious. Sometimes, it's hidden in small details, waiting for someone curious enough to notice that as you go through your own coins, you might start to see them differently. That penny you once ignored could suddenly become interesting. You might find yourself checking dates, looking for mint marks, and wondering about the story behind each coin. And that's the real magic of coin collecting. It turns everyday objects into pieces of history. Each coin has traveled through time, passing from one hand to another, carrying with it a silent story. The 1970 Lincoln penny may not be the rarest coin in the world, but it holds a special place in the hearts of collectors. It represents possibility. The possibility that something small and overlooked can turn out to be meaningful, even valuable. So the next time you see a penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Check the date. Look for that small D mint mark, because you never know. That tiny coin might just be the start of a fascinating discovery. And who knows? Somewhere out there, another 1970 penny is waiting to be found, quietly holding on to its secrets, just waiting for someone like you to notice it. Welcome back. Imagine pulling a simple penny out of your pocket, only to discover it might be worth far more than 1 cent. What if a tiny letter on that coin, almost invisible to the eye, could turn an ordinary piece of change into something collectors quietly chase for years? Today, we're talking about the 1971 Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that looks common at first glance but holds a fascinating story beneath its copper surface. This coin is part of the long-running Lincoln Cent series, one of the most recognized coins in American history. But what makes the 1971 version stand out is not just when it was made, but how it was made and where it came from. In 1971, the United States was going through a time of economic change. Inflation was rising, and the cost of producing coins was becoming a growing concern. Yet the Lincoln penny continued to be minted in large numbers, serving as a symbol of everyday transactions across the country. The S mint mark on this coin tells us it was produced at the San Francisco Mint, a facility known for producing high-quality coins, especially proof coins intended for collectors. Now here's where things get interesting. The 1971 Lincoln penny was struck in two main types: regular circulation coins and proof coins. Proof coins are specially made using polished dies and carefully prepared planchets, giving them a mirror-like finish and sharp details. These were never meant to be used in daily transactions. Instead, they were sold directly to collectors in special sets. At first, millions of these coins were made, so you might assume they're not rare at all. And in many cases, that's true. But rarity doesn't always come from low production numbers. Sometimes it comes from condition, errors, and tiny variations that most people never notice. Let's talk about the design. On the front of the coin, you see the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, a design that has been used since 1909. Above his head is the word Liberty, and to the right is the date, 1971. Just below the date, you'll find that small but important S mint mark. On the back, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959 to celebrate Lincoln's 150th birthday. The coin is made mostly of copper, with a composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. It has a smooth edge, weighs about 3.11 grams, and has a diameter of 19 millimeters. Nothing about these specifications seems extraordinary, and yet within this simplicity lies hidden value. One of the most talked about features of the 1971 penny is the possibility of double die errors. A double die occurs when the coin's design is accidentally imprinted twice in slightly different positions during the creation of the die. This results in a noticeable doubling of letters or numbers on the coin. For the 1971 proof penny, some coins show clear doubling in the word Liberty or in the date. To the untrained eye, it might look like a minor flaw, but to collectors, it's a major discovery. These error coins are significantly more valuable than standard versions. Another factor that adds to the coin's appeal is its condition. A regular 1971 penny found in circulation might only be worth a few cents. But a proof coin in perfect condition, with deep mirror surfaces and no visible marks, can be worth much more. Collectors use grading systems to evaluate coins, and the highest grades can bring surprising prices. There have been examples where high-grade 1971 proof pennies have sold for hundreds of dollars. And when you combine a high grade with a rare error, the value can climb even higher. Some collectors have paid premium prices for coins that show strong doubling and flawless surfaces. So how do you know if you have one of these valuable coins? First, look for the S mint mark below the date. That tells you it was made in San Francisco. Next, examine the coin's surface. If it has a shiny, mirror-like finish and sharp details, it may be a proof coin. Then, take a closer look at the lettering. Use a magnifying glass if you can. Check the word Liberty, the date, and even In God We Trust. If you notice any doubling or unusual spacing, you might be holding something special. It's also important to watch out for fakes or altered coins. Some people try to add an S mint mark to coins that didn't originally have one. Others might attempt to create artificial doubling. That's why serious collectors often rely on professional grading services to authenticate and grade their coins. Here's a fun detail that many people don't realize. During this time period, the San Francisco Mint was transitioning away from producing regular circulation coins and focusing more on proof coins. That makes the 1971 penny part of an interesting shift in U.S. coin production history. Another surprising fact is that many proof coins from this era were not handled carefully by their original owners. Over time, fingerprints, scratches, and improper storage have reduced the number of high-quality examples. This means that truly pristine coins are harder to find today, even though millions were originally made. Collectors love the 1971 Lincoln penny for several reasons. It represents a balance between accessibility and hidden rarity. It's affordable enough for beginners to collect, yet it still offers the thrill of discovering a valuable error or a high-grade specimen. It's also a piece of history, capturing a moment when coin production and economic conditions were changing in the United States. There's also something deeply satisfying about searching for these coins. Unlike rare gold coins locked away in vaults, Lincoln pennies can still be found in old collections, coin jars, and even pocket change. That sense of possibility keeps collectors coming back again and again. Over the years, stories have surfaced of people finding valuable coins in the most unexpected places. A forgotten proof set in a drawer, a coin inherited from a relative, or even a lucky find at a garage sale. The 1971 penny has been part of many of these stories, quietly waiting to be noticed. As you start paying closer attention to your coins, you begin to see them differently. What once seemed ordinary becomes full of detail and history. Each mark, each letter, each tiny variation tells a story about how the coin was made and where it has been. And that's the real beauty of the 1971 Lincoln penny. It's not just about the potential value. It's about the journey of discovery. It's about learning to see something familiar in a completely new way, so the next time you come across a penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Check the date. Look for that small S mint mark. You never know what you might find. Because sometimes, the smallest coins carry the biggest surprises. And hidden among millions of ordinary pennies could be one that turns a simple moment into an unforgettable discovery. What if I told you that a small, ordinary-looking penny from 1975 could be hiding in plain sight, quietly sitting in a jar, a drawer, or even your pocket right now, and that same coin might be worth far more than just 1 cent? Today, we're talking about the 1975 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that millions of people have seen, but very few truly understand. At first glance, it looks like any other penny. It carries the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. But behind that simple design is a story tied to American history, mass production, and the hidden details that turn an everyday coin into something collectors can't stop searching for. The 1975 Lincoln penny is part of a long-running series that began in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. By 1975, the United States was going through a period of economic change. Inflation was rising, and the cost of producing coins was becoming a concern. Still, the penny remained an important part of daily transactions, and billions of them were minted that year. Now here's where things get interesting. The term no mint mark might sound rare, but in the case of 1975 pennies, it actually refers to coins produced at the Philadelphia Mint. During that time, the Philadelphia Mint did not use a mint mark on pennies. So if you find a 1975 penny without a small letter under the date, that simply means it came from Philadelphia. And there were a lot of them. In fact, over 5.4 billion 1975 pennies were struck in Philadelphia alone. That number might make it seem like these coins are completely common and not worth much at all. And for most examples, that's true. A typical worn 1975 no mint mark penny is usually worth just a few cents above face value. But not all coins are created equal. What makes certain 1975 pennies stand out is their condition, their quality, and in some cases, small but important errors that occurred during the minting process. These are the details that collectors pay close attention to. Let's start with the coin's basic features. The 1975 Lincoln penny is made primarily of copper, about 95% copper and 5% zinc. It weighs 3.11 grams and has a smooth edge. On the front, you'll see Abraham Lincoln's profile facing right, along with the words, "In God We Trust," above his head, "Liberty" to the left, and the date 1975 to the right. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial is centered, with United States of America and E Pluribus Unum above, and 1 cent below at a glance. Everything seems standard, but collectors don't stop at the surface. They look for sharp details, strong luster, and signs that the coin has been well preserved. A 1975 penny in mint state condition, meaning it has never been circulated and shows no wear, can be worth significantly more than a regular circulated coin. Now let's talk about something that really drives up value: errors. Mint errors happen when something goes wrong during the production of a coin. These mistakes can range from small imperfections to dramatic changes in the coin's appearance. For 1975 pennies, some of the most sought-after errors include double die varieties, off-center strikes, and coins struck on the wrong planchet. A double die error occurs when the coin's design is accidentally stamped twice in slightly different positions, creating a noticeable doubling effect on the letters or numbers. While major double die errors for 1975 are not as famous as those from other years, subtle doubling can still attract collector interest. Off-center strikes are another type of error where the coin is not properly aligned during the strike, causing part of the design to be missing. The more off-center the coin is while still showing the date, the more valuable it can become. Then there are wrong planchet errors, where a penny design is struck on a metal blank intended for a different coin. These are extremely rare and can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on the specifics. But even without dramatic errors, condition alone can make a big difference. Coins are graded on a scale from poor condition to perfect mint state. A 1975 no mint mark penny in average circulated condition might only be worth 1 to 3 cents. But in uncirculated condition, especially with a bright red color and strong luster, the value can jump to several dollars, sometimes even more. In fact, some high-grade examples of 1975 pennies have sold for impressive amounts at auction. Coins graded at the very top levels, like MS-67 or higher, are extremely rare because it's difficult for a coin to survive decades without any marks or damage. These top-quality coins can sell for hundreds or even over $1,000, depending on demand and eye appeal. There have been cases where collectors paid significant premiums for coins with exceptional surfaces, vibrant color, and perfect details. These are not the pennies you find in everyday change. They are carefully preserved pieces that stand out among billions of others. So how can you tell if your 1975 penny is worth more than face value? First, check for the absence of a mint mark. Remember, no mint mark means it was made in Philadelphia. That's normal for this year, but it's still the starting point. Next, look at the condition. Is the coin shiny, with a bright copper color, or is it dull and worn? Coins that still have their original red color are generally more valuable than those that have turned brown over time. Then examine the details. Look closely at the lettering and the date. Do you see any doubling? Are the edges of the letters sharp and clear? A magnifying glass can help you spot small features that aren't visible to the naked eye. Also, weigh the coin if possible. A standard 1975 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If the weight is significantly different, it could indicate an unusual error or, in some cases, a counterfeit. Speaking of counterfeits, while fake 1975 pennies are not as common as fakes of more valuable coins, it's still important to be cautious. If a coin looks unusual or too good to be true, it's a good idea to have it checked by a professional grading service. These experts can confirm whether a coin is genuine and assign it an official grade, which can greatly affect its value. Here's a fun fact that surprises many people. Even though billions of 1975 pennies were made, finding one in perfect condition today is incredibly difficult. Most of these coins were used heavily in circulation, tossed into jars, or stored without any protection. Over time, they picked up scratches, nicks, and discoloration. That's why collectors are always searching for those rare, pristine examples. Another interesting detail is the role of copper. Because 1975 pennies are mostly copper, their metal value alone can sometimes be higher than 1 cent, depending on market prices. This has led to ongoing debates about whether pennies should continue to be produced, especially as production costs rise. Collectors love the 1975 no-mint mark penny not because it is rare in general, but because it represents a challenge. It's a common coin with uncommon possibilities. Anyone can find one, but finding a truly valuable example takes patience, knowledge, and a bit of luck. There's also a sense of nostalgia tied to these coins. For many people, pennies from the 1970s bring back memories of a different time in America, when cash transactions were more common and small change had a bigger role in everyday life. And that's what makes coin collecting so fascinating. It's not just about money, it's about history, discovery, and the idea that something small and overlooked can hold unexpected value. So the next time you come across a 1975 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Check its condition. Look for unusual features. Because while most of these coins are ordinary, a few are anything but. And who knows, that tiny piece of copper sitting unnoticed in your collection might just have a story and a value waiting to be uncovered. Welcome back. Imagine picking up a simple penny from your pocket, the kind most people overlook every single day, and discovering it might be worth far more than just 1 cent. Today, we're diving into the story of the 1978 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that seems ordinary at first glance, but hides details that collectors quietly hunt for. The 1978 Lincoln penny is part of one of the most familiar coin series in American history. First introduced in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln, this design has been in circulation for generations. By 1978, these pennies were still being produced in massive numbers, used in everyday transactions across the United States. Millions of people handled them without a second thought, buying groceries, paying for gas, or dropping them into jars at home. Now here's where things get interesting. When you see a 1978 penny without a mint mark, it means it was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. At that time, Philadelphia coins typically did not carry a mint mark, unlike those from Denver, which were stamped with a D, or San Francisco, which often used an S. So at first glance, a 1978 penny with no mint mark might seem completely normal. But in the world of coin collecting, normal doesn't always mean worthless. To understand why this coin still attracts attention, we need to look at its history. The late 1970s were a period of high coin production in the United States. The country was dealing with inflation, and there was a constant need for circulating currency. In 1978 alone, billions of pennies were minted. Philadelphia produced over 5 billion of them, making it one of the highest production years in U.S. coin history. So how can something made in such huge numbers still be valuable? The answer lies in condition, subtle variations, and the possibility of rare errors. Let's start with the design. On the front of the coin, you'll see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. His profile faces right, with the word Liberty to the left and the date 1978 on the right. Above Lincoln's head is the motto, "In God We Trust." On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was used from 1959 to 2008. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny image of Lincoln seated inside the memorial. The coin is made primarily of copper, about 95%, with a small amount of zinc. It weighs about 3.11 grams and has a smooth edge. Nothing about these specifications seems unusual, and that's exactly why most people miss what makes certain examples special. Condition is one of the biggest factors in determining value. A 1978 penny that has been heavily circulated will usually only be worth its face value. But if you find one in uncirculated condition, meaning it was never used in everyday transactions, the value can increase significantly. These coins often have a bright, original luster and sharp details that haven't been worn down over time. Collectors use grading systems to evaluate coins, and even a small difference in condition can mean a big difference in price. A 1978 no-mint mark penny in average condition might be worth 1 cent, but in high-grade condition, it could be worth several dollars, sometimes even more. Now let's talk about something that truly excites collectors: errors. Minting errors are accidental mistakes that occur during the coin production process. And while they're rare, they're one of the main reasons a common coin can suddenly become valuable. For the 1978 penny, some of the most sought-after errors include double dies, off-center strikes, and clipped planchets. A double die error happens when the design is stamped onto the coin more than once, slightly misaligned. This can create a noticeable doubling effect on the letters or numbers. For example, you might see the date 1978 appear slightly doubled, or the word Liberty showing a shadow-like duplication. These coins can be worth significantly more than regular ones, especially if the doubling is strong and easy to see. Off-center strikes occur when the coin is not properly aligned during the minting process. This results in part of the design being missing, while the rest is shifted to one side. The more dramatic the off-center error, the more valuable the coin can be, especially if the date is still visible. Clipped planchets are another fascinating error. This happens when the metal blank used to create the coin is improperly cut, leaving a curved or straight clip missing from the edge. These coins have a very distinct appearance and are highly collectible. Real-world examples show just how much these factors matter. While most 1978 pennies sell for just a few cents, high-grade uncirculated coins have sold for over $10 or even $20. Error coins, on the other hand, can fetch much higher prices. Some double die examples have sold for hundreds of dollars, depending on their condition and visibility of the error. There have even been cases where rare error coins from this year appeared in auctions and surprised collectors with unexpectedly high final prices. These moments remind us that even a common coin can become valuable under the right circumstances. But how can you tell if you have a valuable 1978 penny or just a regular one? Start by checking the date and the absence of a mint mark. Then examine the coin under good lighting. Look closely at the lettering, especially Liberty and In God We Trust, as well as the date. If you notice any doubling, unusual shapes, or misalignments, you might be looking at an error coin. Next, pay attention to the condition. Does the coin still have its original shine? Are the details sharp, or are they worn down? Even small scratches or signs of wear can affect value. If your coin looks unusually clean and well-preserved, it might be worth having it evaluated by a professional grading service. Another important step is comparing your coin to verified examples. Many collectors use magnifying tools or digital microscopes to study coins in detail. This helps them spot features that are not visible to the naked eye. Now let's talk about authenticity. Counterfeit pennies are not very common, especially for coins like the 1978 Lincoln penny, because their base value is low. However, altered coins do exist. Some people try to create fake errors or modify coins to make them appear more valuable. That's why it's important to rely on trusted sources and, if necessary, seek expert opinions before making any buying or selling decisions. Here's something many people don't realize. The 1978 penny represents a moment just before a major change in U.S. coin composition. In 1982, the mint switched from mostly copper pennies to zinc-based ones due to rising metal costs. That makes the 1978 penny part of the final era of traditional copper coins, which adds a layer of historical significance. Another interesting detail is how many of these pennies are still out there today. Despite being over 4 decades old, you can still find them in circulation. That means there's always a chance, however small, that a valuable example could be hiding in your loose change. Collectors love the 1978 no-mint mark penny not because it's extremely rare, but because it offers the thrill of discovery. It's a reminder that valuable coins aren't always locked away in museums or private collections. Sometimes, they're sitting quietly in a jar, waiting to be noticed. For beginners, this coin is also a great entry point into coin collecting. It's easy to find, simple to understand, and teaches the basics of grading, mint marks, and error detection. For experienced collectors, it's an opportunity to hunt for high-grade examples or rare variations that others might miss. And that's really what makes coin collecting so exciting. It's not just about money. It's about history, attention to detail, and the possibility that something small and ordinary could turn out to be extraordinary. So the next time you come across a 1978 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Check the details. You might not find anything unusual, but then again, you might discover a hidden gem that tells a story far beyond its 1-cent face value. Because in the world of coins, even the smallest piece of metal can hold a surprising amount of history, mystery, and value. Welcome back. What if the next penny you find in your pocket isn't just 1 cent, but a small piece of history that could quietly be worth far more than you think? Today, we're taking a closer look at a coin many people overlook every day, the 1979 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny, and uncovering the surprising details that make it far more interesting than its face value suggests. The 1979 D Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced by the United States Mint in Denver. At first glance, it looks just like countless other pennies. Small, copper-colored, and familiar. But behind that simple appearance lies a story of changing materials, evolving designs, and hidden details that collectors love to study. Even though millions of these coins were made, not all of them are equal, and some carry unique traits that make them stand out. To understand this coin, we need to step back into the late 1970s. America was going through economic changes, including rising inflation and increasing production costs for coins. The Lincoln penny, first introduced in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln, had already gone through several design changes over the decades. By 1979, the basic look of the coin was still the same as it had been since 1959. On the front, you see Lincoln's profile facing right. On the back, you see the Lincoln Memorial, a design that had replaced the original wheat stalks 20 years earlier. The D Mint mark on this coin tells you it was made in Denver. In 1979, the Denver Mint produced billions of pennies, making it one of the busiest facilities at the time. These coins were struck in massive quantities to meet the everyday needs of the economy. Because of this high production, most 1979 D pennies are still very common today. But that doesn't mean they're all the same, and it certainly doesn't mean they're all worthless. One of the most important things about the 1979 penny is its metal composition. Unlike modern pennies made mostly of zinc, the 1979 coin is composed primarily of copper, about 95% copper with a small amount of zinc. This gives it a slightly heavier feel and a richer color compared to newer pennies. Many collectors prefer these older copper coins because of their durability and historical value. When you look closely at the design, you'll notice the fine details that often go unnoticed. On the front, above Lincoln's head, is the phrase, "In God We Trust." To the left, you'll see liberty, and to the right, the year 1979, along with the small D Mint mark. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial is carefully engraved, and if you look very closely, you can even spot a tiny image of Lincoln seated inside the memorial. It's a small detail, but one that shows the craftsmanship involved in these coins. Now here's where things get interesting. While most 1979 D pennies are common, certain versions can be surprisingly valuable. The key factor is condition. Coins that have never been circulated, known as mint state coins, can be worth significantly more than face value. These coins retain their original shine, with no scratches or wear, and they are often graded by professionals on a scale from 1 to 70. A 1979 D penny in average condition might only be worth 1 or 2 cents, but in near-perfect condition, it can sell for several dollars, and in rare cases, much more. Another reason this coin can become valuable is due to errors. Mint errors happen when something goes wrong during the production process. For the 1979 D penny, collectors have reported errors such as off-center strikes, double die impressions, and die cracks. A double die error, for example, can cause parts of the design or lettering to appear doubled, making the coin unique and highly collectible. These errors are not common, which is exactly why they attract attention. There are also cases where coins have unusual coloring or toning. Over time, copper coins can develop shades of red, brown, or even a mix of both. A bright red 1979 D penny that has been well preserved is often more valuable than a darker, worn one. Collectors often use terms like red, red-brown, and brown to describe these variations, and the difference in value between them can be significant. Let's talk about real-world value examples. While most 1979 D pennies are only worth face value, high-grade examples have been sold at auction for impressive prices. A coin graded MS-65, which means it's in excellent condition with minimal flaws, might sell for a few dollars. But a coin graded MS-67 or higher, which is extremely rare for circulation coins, can sell for hundreds of dollars. These top-condition coins are hard to find because most pennies were heavily used in everyday transactions. Error coins can bring even higher prices. Depending on the type and severity of the error, a 1979 D penny with a noticeable double die or off-center strike could sell anywhere from $20 to over $100. In some rare cases, unique or dramatic errors have reached even higher values among dedicated collectors. Of course, with valuable coins comes the question of authenticity. How do you know if your 1979 D penny is real or special? The first step is to carefully examine the coin under good lighting. Look for clear details in Lincoln's face and the lettering. A genuine coin will have sharp, consistent features. The mint mark should be small but well-defined, not blurry or uneven. If you suspect an error, compare it to known examples online or consult a coin expert. Weight is another clue. A genuine 1979 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If it feels significantly lighter or heavier, it may not be authentic. You can also use a magnifying glass to check for signs of tampering, such as altered dates or added mint marks. Professional grading services can provide the most reliable confirmation, especially if you believe your coin is valuable. Here's a fun detail that many people don't realize. The Lincoln Memorial design on the back of the penny was used for exactly 50 years, from 1959 to 2008. That makes the 1979 D penny part of a long-running design era in American coinage. In 2009, the design changed to celebrate Lincoln's 200th birthday, and later, the shield design replaced the memorial. So when you hold a 1979 penny, you're holding a piece of that long history. Another surprising fact is how many of these coins are still out there. Because they were produced in such large numbers, it's entirely possible that valuable versions are still hiding in jars, drawers, or old collections. Many people don't bother to check their pennies closely, which means hidden treasures can go unnoticed for years. Collectors are drawn to the 1979 D penny for several reasons. For beginners, it's an accessible coin that's easy to find and affordable to collect in different conditions. For more experienced collectors, the challenge lies in finding high-grade examples or rare errors. It's a coin that rewards careful observation and patience. There's also a sense of nostalgia attached to these pennies. They remind people of a time when coins were used more frequently in everyday life. For many collectors, building a set of Lincoln pennies is not just about value, but about preserving a piece of American history. So why does this coin continue to capture attention today? It's not just about money. It's about the idea that something so small and ordinary can carry a story. A 1979 D penny might have passed through countless hands, traveled across cities, and been part of everyday transactions. And yet, it still has the potential to surprise you. As you go about your day, think about the coins you come across. That simple penny in your pocket might be more than just spare change. It could be a well-preserved piece of history, an overlooked error coin, or even the start of a collection that grows over time. The next time you see a 1979 D Lincoln penny, don't ignore it. Take a closer look, because sometimes the most ordinary objects hold the most unexpected stories, and you never know when one of them might be worth far more than 1 cent.